My name is Claire Matthews, and I'm 32 years old. And if you think your family has drama, wait until you hear how my stepsister tried to steal 100 grand from me, and how I turned her dream wedding into her worst nightmare. You know what's worse than being stabbed in the back by family? Being asked to smile while they twist the knife. That's why before I get into this, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the wildest thing your family has ever done to you? Because when I tell you what Vanessa, my stepsister, pulled, you'll be glad it wasn't your family. It all started with a phone call. And trust me, this wasn't the kind of call you can just shrug off and forget. It was the kind that makes your jaw drop, your heart race, and your brain scream, "Are you kidding me right now?" I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking my second cup of coffee because, let's be honest, one cup barely gets me through checking my emails, let alone surviving a Tuesday. My phone buzzes and I see the caller ID, wedding planner. Now, mind you, this was Vanessa's wedding planner. I figured maybe she was calling about some final details, or maybe another request Vanessa had decided to make. But when I picked up, her voice had this shaky tone that made me immediately suspicious. "Hi, Claire," she said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. I just wanted to confirm something. Your family has decided to rescind your invitation to the wedding. But they told us you'd be fine with forfeiting the $100,000 deposit you already paid." Excuse me, what? I literally choked on my coffee. I had to grab a napkin because it almost came out my nose. "I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because it sounded like you just said I'm not invited to the wedding I practically bankrolled." "Yes," she said, her voice faltering. "That's what they instructed me to tell you." For a full 10 seconds, I sat there in silence. Not because I was speechless. Oh no, my brain was working overtime, but because I was calculating. You see, they thought they were pulling the ultimate betrayal. They thought they were going to cut me out, humiliate me, and pocket $100,000 of my hard-earned money. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't just some generous fool writing checks. I wasn't just the unwanted stepsister in the background. No. I owned the venue they were getting married at. I owned the catering company serving their overpriced lobster and champagne. And, as the cherry on top, I owned the hotel chain where all their precious guests had booked their rooms. So, being uninvited? It was like someone telling you that you're not allowed in your own house. I almost laughed. In fact, I did laugh. Out loud. Right into the phone. "Cancel the entire wedding," I said, calm as ever. There was silence on the other end. Then came the gasp. "But, Miss Matthews, you're not the bride." "No." I cut her off. "But I'm the one who makes sure the lights stay on, the food gets served, and the rooms are cleaned. And without me, that wedding doesn't exist. So cancel it." The poor planner stammered, probably wondering if she should hang up, cry, or both. But she knew I wasn't bluffing. And just like that, the first domino fell. Now, I wish I could tell you this came out of nowhere, that Vanessa had always been sweet and loving, and this was just a shocking twist. But no. Vanessa and I had been at odds since day one. She became my stepsister when I was 15 and she was 14 after my mom remarried. And from the moment we met, it was like oil and water. Or more like oil and fire, because everything between us turned into a spark that set off a blaze. Vanessa had this way of making everything into a competition. If I got an A on a test, she'd cry because she only got an A-. If I bought a dress, she'd show up in something flashier the next week. If I made a joke at dinner, she'd interrupt me with one louder and meaner. It was like living with a reality show villain. So when she got engaged, I knew trouble was coming. Big, dramatic, fireworks-level trouble. The funny part? I hadn't even planned on paying for her wedding. But she came to me one day, tears in her eyes, voice shaking, talking about how her parents couldn't afford the grand celebration she wanted, and how this was her one perfect day. And yes, maybe I fell for it. Maybe some part of me thought, hey, maybe if I do this for her, maybe if I help, we'll finally have peace. Spoiler alert, nope. I wired the money. $100,000. I told myself it was an investment in family harmony. Except what I got in return was a slap in the face. And here's where it gets spicy. Because Vanessa didn't just cut me out. Oh no. She wanted to erase me completely. And that was the biggest mistake of her life. Claire's voice lowers. Because if you think I was going to let my stepsister humiliate me and steal my money without consequences, oh honey, you don't know me at all. And the moves I made next? They didn't just cancel her wedding. They flipped her entire world upside down.
If this story reached you, drop your country or city in the comments. I'd love to see how far it's traveled. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional, true-to-life stories just like this one.
I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. The audacity. The arrogance. My stepsister really thought she could erase me from her life's biggest moment and pocket my money like I was some background character. That's when something inside me shifted. Up until that call, I'd always been the peacemaker. The one who swallowed her pride, cracked the dumb joke, kept things light. But this wasn't just disrespect. This was robbery. This was betrayal. And betrayal has a way of sharpening a person. So I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started making calls. The first call? To the venue manager. He answered quickly, cheerful. Hey boss, what's up? Cancel the Matthews Whitaker wedding booking, I said flat. He hesitated. But that's in less than a week. I know, I said. Full cancellation. Effective immediately. And refund nothing. Not a dime. They forfeited everything. There was a pause, then a slow exhale. He didn't question me again. Understood. Click. One domino down. The second call was to the head chef of the catering company. He picked up with music blaring in the background, pots clanging. Claire, you caught me mid-prep for that Whitaker feast. Stop prepping, I said coldly. Cancel it. The whole menu. And if anyone calls asking why, tell them to call me directly. Dead silence. Then a low whistle. Oof. Must have hit the fan, huh? You could say that, I muttered. Domino 2. The third call? The hotel chain. The reservations manager nearly choked when I told her, cancel every single block booking for the Whitaker Matthews wedding. Release the rooms to the public. And if guests show up, charge them full price, no exceptions. By the time I closed my laptop, I wasn't smiling anymore. My hands were steady, my heart was ice, and my mind was already 10 steps ahead. Because canceling the wedding was just the beginning. Let me tell you something about Vanessa. She lived for appearances. She didn't care about love or family or even her fiancé half the time. What she cared about was looking flawless, being admired, being envied. So what better revenge than to strip all of that away, piece by piece, while she watched? It wasn't enough to just cancel the wedding. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to squirm when the guests arrived at the hotel and found no rooms. I wanted her to choke on embarrassment when the venue locked its doors. I wanted her to taste humiliation when her perfect day turned to ash. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted her to remember for the rest of her life that she made the mistake of underestimating me. The calls started the next morning. First from the wedding planner, her voice panicked. Claire, what did you do? The venue says the booking is gone. Vanessa is screaming at me. Good, I said, voice cold. Let her scream. Then from my stepmother. Claire, honey, can we talk about this? Vanessa didn't mean. Save it. I cut her off. She knew exactly what she was doing. And finally, the cherry on top. Vanessa herself. She didn't even say hello. She went straight for the jugular. You vindictive witch. How dare you cancel my wedding? Funny, I said calmly. I was about to ask you the same question. How dare you cancel my invitation and steal my money? It wasn't stealing, she shrieked. You offered to help. I didn't offer to bankroll a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend, I snapped. My voice had no warmth left in it. You don't get to erase me and keep my money, Vanessa. That's not how this works. There was silence on her end. For once, the girl who always had a comeback had nothing. I hung up, and I smiled, but it wasn't the goofy, peacekeeping smile I was known for. No. This smile was sharp, cold. The kind of smile a chess player wears when they've already won the match and their opponent doesn't realize it yet. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Because what Vanessa didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had another card to play. Something bigger. Something that would not only ruin her wedding, but unravel her perfect little life piece by piece. And I was going to play it soon. Very soon. The clock was ticking. And Vanessa had no idea what was coming. After I hung up on Vanessa, I sat alone in my living room. The phone still buzzed with missed calls. My stepmother, the planner, even a few unknown numbers I suspected were relatives trying to play mediator. I didn't answer a single one. Because I wasn't just planning revenge anymore. I was strategizing. You see, revenge isn't about rage. Rage is sloppy. Rage is punching holes in walls and screaming into pillows. No. Real revenge, the kind that leaves scars, is quiet, precise, surgical. And I was about to become a surgeon. The first thing I did was pull up the contracts. Vanessa thought she could erase me, but legally, everything was under my control. Every clause, every penalty, every forfeited deposit, all of it was written in my favor. I'd made sure of that. So when the venue manager called me again, nervously asking, "Are you sure, Claire? They're threatening to sue." I didn't flinch. "They can try," I said, flipping through the pages on my laptop. But the contract states, cancellations less than 30 days before the event, forfeit all deposits, no exceptions. If they want to sue, let them. The law is on my side. He let out a low whistle. Cold-blooded. Correct, I replied. By Friday, the chaos had spread like wildfire. Guests were calling the hotel, furious about their canceled rooms. My phone lit up with angry texts from relatives. "Claire, how could you do this to family? This is Vanessa's special day. Don't ruin it. We'll never forgive you for this." I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through their messages with the same expression I use when deleting spam emails. Unwanted. Irrelevant. Gone. Because the truth was, these people weren't my family. They were spectators who had chosen their side. And since they'd chosen Vanessa, they could burn with her. Vanessa, of course, wasn't going quietly. She called me again that evening, her voice hoarse from screaming. "You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea how humiliated I am?" "Good," I said flatly. That was the point. "You're insane." "No, Vanessa," I replied, voice icy. Insane is trying to erase the person who literally paid for your wedding. Insane is thinking you could pocket my money and waltz off into your happily ever after. What I am is rational. And ruthless. There was silence. Then she spat. "You'll regret this." I laughed, low and sharp. "No, Vanessa. You will." Click. End of call. But canceling the wedding wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the weight of her decisions long after this disaster faded. I wanted her to see my fingerprints on every piece of her crumbling life. So I dug deeper. And that's when I found the leverage. Vanessa's fiancé, Daniel, wasn't the squeaky clean Prince Charming she paraded on social media. A quick background check, something I'd done half out of curiosity, half out of suspicion, revealed a trail of debt, shady business deals, and one very messy lawsuit he'd settled quietly 2 years ago. Interesting. Even more interesting, he didn't know about Vanessa's little scheme with the $100,000. She hadn't told him it was my money that funded their wedding. And I realized I could use that. The next morning, I called Daniel. He answered on the third ring, sounding groggy. "Hello." "Hi, Daniel," I said sweetly. "It's Claire, your fiancé's stepsister." A pause. Hi. Listen, I thought you should know something. Vanessa canceled my invitation to the wedding. Oh, and she also tried to keep the $100,000 I paid as a deposit. Dead silence. Then a sharp inhale. "She what?" "Exactly what I said," I replied, letting my voice harden. "I paid for everything, the venue, catering, hotel. All of it. And she cut me out while trying to keep the money. But here's the thing, Daniel. I canceled it all. No venue. No catering. No hotel. The wedding is over before it even began." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he muttered, I need to call you back." And just like that, I planted the seed. See, that's the beauty of revenge. Sometimes you don't have to swing the axe yourself. Sometimes all you have to do is hand it to someone else and let them do the cutting. By the afternoon, Vanessa called me again, her voice shrill and panicked. How dare you call Daniel? What did you tell him? The truth, I said calmly. That you tried to steal from me. You ruined my relationship. No, Vanessa, I replied coldly. You ruined it when you decided deceit was easier than honesty. I just sped up the timeline. Her sobs crackled through the phone, and for a moment I almost felt a flicker of pity. Almost. But then I remembered the smug way she used to look at me at family dinners, the way she always twisted the knife, just a little deeper. And the pity vanished like smoke. By Sunday, the wedding was officially dead. The guests were confused, furious. The gossip was spreading online. And Vanessa? She was unraveling. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because destroying her wedding was just the beginning. I wanted to destroy her reputation. And I already knew exactly how. Destroying her wedding was easy. But destroying her reputation? That required finesse. See, Vanessa thrived on image. To her, perception wasn't just everything, it was oxygen. Her Instagram feed looked like a luxury magazine spread. Designer bags, beach vacations, fancy dinners she pretended to pay for but didn't. She lived for the envy of others. So, I decided to let envy rot her from the inside out. The first move was quiet, subtle. I began forwarding select screenshots to the right people. Not strangers, not tabloids, no. That would be too obvious. I started with her inner circle, her so-called friends. A carefully worded message here. A screenshot of a contract there. A bank transfer receipt showing my name on the $100,000 payment. No accusations. Just proof. And like gasoline on a smoldering fire, the gossip spread itself. By Wednesday, I overheard one of our cousins whispering at a cafe. Did you hear? Vanessa's big wedding wasn't even paid for by her. It was Claire's money. She tried to cut Claire out completely. Her friend gasped. No way. Wow. That's low. Exactly the reaction I wanted. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. That was the key. No public outbursts. No big confrontations. I let the story grow legs on its own. Because the quieter I was, the guiltier Vanessa looked. And it worked. Her phone calls grew more frantic by the day. Claire, you have to stop this. People are turning on me. I haven't said a word. I replied evenly. Maybe you should ask yourself why no one believes you. Her breath hitched. You're lying. No, Vanessa, I said coldly. I don't need to lie. You've already done that for me. The second move was even subtler. Daniel. I didn't badmouth her fiancé to him. I didn't need to. I just let him see. I sent him a copy of the invoice for the venue, my name signed at the bottom. A bank statement showing the $100,000 transfer. A copy of the cancellation email with Vanessa's name at the top of the guest list, and mine missing entirely. No explanation. Just documents. When he called me that night, his voice was flat, hollow. She really tried to erase you. Yes, I said simply. And keep the money. Yes. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then he sighed, defeated. I don't even know who I'm marrying anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. By Friday, the cracks were showing. Vanessa stopped posting on Instagram. Her friends stopped liking her photos. Whispers followed her in every room she entered. At dinner that night, my stepmother tried to intervene again. Claire, honey, maybe it's time to stop. Vanessa has learned her lesson. I looked at her across the table. My fork paused midair. Has she? Or has she just been exposed? Does it matter? She pressed. She's humiliated enough. Humiliation isn't the lesson, I replied coldly. Accountability is. And I went back to eating, ignoring the stunned silence around me. But here's the thing about subtle revenge. It doesn't just destroy the target. It isolates them. Slowly. Methodically. Vanessa had always been the golden child, the center of attention. Now, she was radioactive. Nobody wanted to be near her. Nobody wanted to be dragged into her scandal. I didn't need to lift a finger anymore. She was unraveling herself. The final straw came 2 weeks later. Daniel called me again, his voice weary. "Claire, it's over." I called off the engagement. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I should have felt triumphant. And in a way, I did. But mostly, I felt cold. Steady. Like a surgeon stepping back from the operating table after a long, precise procedure. "I see," I said calmly. "She lied to me," he whispered. "About everything. And I can't build a life on lies." I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't need to. Because Vanessa's empire of illusions had finally collapsed. When word spread that the engagement was broken, the whispers turned into open judgment. Her so-called friends cut her off completely. Family avoided her calls. She went from queen bee to social pariah in less than a month. And I stayed silent. Calm. Untouched. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because while her reputation was in ruins, Vanessa still had one thing left. One thing I wasn't finished with. Her pride. And I was going to crush it. Pride. That was the last thing Vanessa had left. Her reputation was gone. Her friends had abandoned her. Daniel had walked out. But she still carried herself with that same haughty tilt of the chin, that smug little smile she used to hide the rot underneath. She thought if she pretended hard enough, she could survive the whispers. That people would forget. That her perfect image could somehow be salvaged. Not on my watch. Because pride has a funny way of blinding people. And I was about to make sure she saw herself clearly, stripped of everything she thought made her untouchable. The first strike came financially. Vanessa had a job, well, if you could call it that. She worked at a boutique PR firm downtown, one that survived more on connections than talent. She strutted around like she was indispensable. But here's the truth. Her biggest client was a luxury hotel chain. And guess who owned that hotel chain? Me. I called the firm's senior partner one morning, my tone clipped and professional. "Effective immediately, your contract with Matthews Hospitality is terminated." The partner stammered. "But Claire, Vanessa is our point of contact." "Exactly," I interrupted. "And as long as she's associated with your firm, you'll never see a dime of our business again." Silence. Then a resigned sigh. Understood. By the end of the week, Vanessa's biggest account was gone. And not long after, so was her job. When she called me, screaming, sobbing, desperate, I answered calmly. "You had no right," she wailed. "That was my career." "Wrong," I said coldly. "It was my business. And I decided I no longer wanted to fund your ego." "You're evil." "No," I said. "I'm fair. Actions have consequences, Vanessa. You took from me. Now I take from you." I hung up. My hands didn't even shake. But financial ruin wasn't enough. Vanessa had always measured her worth in things. The handbag on her arm, the brand on her shoes, the circles she moved in. Stripping away her job was just the appetizer. The main course? Her pride. I started small. Remember that designer handbag she bragged about buying in Paris? I made one quiet call to the boutique, pointing out that the purchase had been made using a joint account she wasn't authorized on. The bag was repossessed within a week. Her car? Leased through a dealership with ties to one of my subsidiaries. Lease revoked. Her apartment? Paid for partially by a family fund my mother and I co-managed. I froze her access overnight. Piece by piece, I dismantled the scaffolding she'd built her life on. And the best part? Every move was legal. Documented. Untouchable. Vanessa was left floundering, scrambling to keep up the illusion. But illusions cost money. And she had none. The personal strike came next. Vanessa had secrets. Everyone does. But hers were especially juicy. And I didn't need to expose them to the world, just to the right people. Like the friend she'd once mocked behind her back for gaining weight. A carefully forwarded voicemail, Vanessa's voice dripping with cruelty, was enough to end that friendship overnight. Or the boss she'd bragged about manipulating for a promotion. A transcript of those texts, delivered anonymously, made sure he wanted nothing to do with her again. Each revelation was a scalpel, slicing away another layer of her carefully constructed persona. And I didn't stop there. One night, she showed up at my door. Makeup streaked from crying, hair a tangled mess, pride hanging by a thread. "Why are you doing this to me?" she whispered. I studied her for a long moment. This was the girl who had spent her entire life trying to outshine me, belittle me, erase me. And now here she was broken, begging. "Because," I said finally, my voice low and cold, "you tried to take everything from me. My money, my dignity, my place in this family. And now, I'm taking everything from you. That's balance, Vanessa. That's justice." Her lips trembled. "You've already ruined me." I shook my head slowly. "Not yet." I closed the door in her face. But the truth? She wasn't completely ruined. Not yet. Because deep down, Vanessa still clung to one last thing. The belief that somehow, someday, she could claw her way back. And I was going to make sure that belief died. Vanessa thought losing her job, her fiancé, and her luxuries was rock bottom. She was wrong. Rock bottom is when the world stops believing in you, and you stop believing in yourself. That's where I was steering her. The psychological takedown started quietly. Every morning, I sent her a small reminder of what she'd lost. Not directly, that would have been too obvious. But indirectly, through little manipulations. An email, accidentally, forwarded to her showing her former colleagues laughing at her expense. A screenshot of her empty bank account balance, courtesy of the fund she no longer had access to. A photo of Daniel at dinner with someone new, dropped into her inbox with no message. Nothing overt. Nothing traceable. Just little daggers. Enough to make her question if she was imagining things. Enough to make her feel like the world was closing in. And it worked. She started showing up late to family dinners, eyes hollow, voice shaky. She barely touched her food. The once vibrant Vanessa was becoming a ghost. But ghosts still haunt. And I wasn't finished yet. The public downfall came next. I didn't blast her secrets across social media. No, that would have been too loud, too easy. Instead, I let her destroy herself. Remember how she loved to flaunt her life online? The glamorous posts, the envy-bait captions? I knew she couldn't resist. So I baited her. I arranged for her to receive a package, a designer dress on loan, anonymously gifted. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist flaunting it. Sure enough, 2 hours later, her Instagram lit up. Sparkles back on top. You can't keep a queen down. Sparkles. But what she didn't know, that dress had already been tagged and tracked by the boutique as loan only. I made one phone call, and within hours, the boutique commented publicly under her post. This dress was provided on loan. Failure to return it is theft. The comments exploded. Wow, so fake. Borrowed glam? Yikes. Didn't she scam her stepsister out of money already? Vanessa deleted the post, but it was too late. Screenshots spread faster than wildfire. The humiliation was viral. The next blow was even crueler. At a family gathering, I casually steered the conversation toward responsibility and trust. Then, with a perfectly neutral expression, I dropped the bomb. It's a shame when people take what isn't theirs. Like when someone uses $100,000 of family money for personal gain. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Vanessa. Her face went pale. "Teach, that's not what happened," she stammered. But the seed was planted. And I didn't have to say another word. The relatives did the rest, their whispers slicing sharper than knives. By the end of the night, Vanessa left early, her pride bleeding out behind her. The psychological and public attacks began to intertwine. She started second-guessing every move she made. If she posted online, she was mocked. If she stayed silent, she was forgotten. If she showed her face at family events, the stares broke her. If she avoided them, the whispers multiplied. I had created a perfect trap, one she couldn't escape. The final push came weeks later. She called me late at night, her voice ragged, breaking. "Claire, I can't do this anymore. Everyone hates me. I hate me." I let the silence hang before answering, my tone colder than it had ever been. Now you know how it feels, I said softly. To be erased. To be treated like you don't matter. That's what you tried to do to me, Vanessa. You wanted me gone. Now you're the one disappearing.
Her sobs filled the line.
I didn't flinch. Goodbye, Vanessa, I whispered and hung up. For days, she vanished. No calls. No posts. No appearances. It was as if she'd dissolved into the shadows. And for the first time, I felt not joy, not triumph, but a cold, steady calm. Because Vanessa's pride, the last piece she had left, was finally shattered. But here's the thing about revenge. Once you've started, it's hard to stop. And deep down, I knew I wasn't finished. Not until I had taken everything. Begging. That was the last thing I ever expected from Vanessa. The same girl who had once sneered at me across dinner tables, who mocked my clothes, my choices, my existence. The girl who had stolen $100,000 from me like it was her birthright. Now she was kneeling at my feet. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I had just returned from a board meeting when the knock came. Sharp, desperate, relentless. I opened the door, and there she was. Vanessa. Soaked through, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, hair clinging to her face. She looked less like the polished stepsister I once knew, and more like a stray animal that had been kicked too many times. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Claire, I need you. For a moment I just stared. The sight of her was almost unreal. She sank to her knees, clutching at the hem of my coat. I have nothing left. No money.
No job.
No friends. Everyone's turned against me. I can't do this anymore. Her hands trembled. Her nails, once manicured to perfection, were chipped and dirty. I was wrong, she sobbed. About everything.
About you.
About how I treated you. I see it now. You were the strong one. The smart one. Please help me. I'll do anything. The begging should have satisfied me. But instead, it sent a chill down my spine. Because this wasn't Vanessa playing a game anymore. This wasn't manipulation. This was real. She was broken. And yet, instead of pity, all I felt was the cold steel of justice tightening around my chest. You want help? I asked quietly. She nodded violently.
Yes.
Yes, please. I tilted my head. The same way you helped me? When you tried to erase me from my own family. When you spent my $100,000 without hesitation? Her eyes flooded with tears. I was stupid. I was selfish. I thought I deserved it. But I don't. I don't deserve anything. Just please, don't let me drown. For a moment, I let silence hang between us. The storm outside pounded against the windows. Her sobs echoed through the hall. Then I leaned down, close enough that she could feel my breath against her ear. You already drowned, Vanessa. I'm just the one who stopped pretending you could swim. Her face crumpled. I stood tall again, straightened my coat, and said the words I had been holding in for years. You wanted to take my life from me. Now I've taken yours. That's balance. And I closed the door in her face. She didn't leave right away. For hours, I heard her muffled cries outside, begging, pleading, her fists weakly pounding on the door. But eventually, the sound faded. When I looked through the peephole later, the porch was empty. Vanessa was gone. Did that make me cruel? Perhaps. But revenge isn't about kindness. It's about restoring the scales. And for the first time in years, the scales felt level. Or so I thought. Because Vanessa wasn't done.
Not yet.
I thought Vanessa's begging on my doorstep was the end. But pride, even shattered pride, is stubborn. It clings like a parasite, whispering lies of survival into the ears of the desperate. Vanessa wasn't finished. A week later, I walked into my office to find her sitting in my chair. She looked different, not polished, not whole, but desperate in a new way. Her hair was combed, her makeup shaky, her smile forced. It was the mask of someone trying to crawl back into power. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice flat. She spread her arms, as if she still owned the room. I'm not giving up, Claire. You can't erase me. I'm your sister, whether you like it or not. And if I go down, I'll take you with me. My jaw tightened. Is that a threat? It's a promise. She leaned forward, eyes glittering with something between madness and hope. You think you're untouchable, but I know things. I know you. For a second, I almost laughed. Vanessa, trying to play offense again, after everything. She rattled on about telling the family I manipulated her, about going to the press with stories of abuse, about dragging my name through the mud until I was as isolated as she was. People will believe me, she hissed. Because I'll make them. I let her finish. Then I stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until I was standing over her. You don't get it, do you? I whispered. She blinked, confused. You've already lost. Every threat you make just proves how little you have left. You're a ghost screaming in an empty room. And ghosts, I leaned down, my eyes locked on hers. Don't scare me. Her lips trembled. I can still. No. I cut in. You can't. And I'm going to make sure you never try again. I pulled a folder from my desk drawer and tossed it in front of her. Inside, documentation of every lie she'd told, every manipulation, every theft, from family accounts to personal betrayals. Bank statements, voicemails, screenshots. Enough evidence to burn whatever scraps of credibility she had left. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Where did you get all this? I've been keeping receipts, I said coldly. For years. Her eyes widened as she realized the truth. That every time she mocked me, every time she stole from me, every time she tried to erase me, I had been building a case. Quiet, patient, waiting. This, I said, tapping the folder, goes public if you ever speak my name again. You won't just be ruined socially. You'll be unemployable, untouchable, a walking scandal. Her face crumpled. You wouldn't. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ice. Try me. That was the moment she broke.
Truly broke.
Her shoulders sagged. The mask fell. And all that was left was a hollow shell of the girl who once thought she was better than me. Vanessa didn't beg this time. She didn't threaten. She just stood, slowly, and walked out. And for the first time since I'd known her, she didn't look back. The door clicked shut, and silence filled the room. That was it. The final strike. Not the money. Not the public humiliation. Not even the begging. No, it was showing her that I had always been in control. That every step she took was already accounted for. That I had planned this revenge with precision. And that realization? That's what destroyed her completely. So here I am, telling you my story. Not because I need validation. Not because I want applause. But because sometimes people like Vanessa walk into your life, smug, selfish, entitled, and they think they can take everything from you without consequence. And sometimes you have to be the consequence. My name is Claire Matthews. I'm 32 years old. And my stepsister learned, too late, that when you play games with people's lives, you'd better be ready to lose your own. If you were glued to this story the way I was living it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me. Would you have gone as far as I did? Or would you have stopped sooner? Because trust me, I want to know how far you'd go for revenge.